I ran out of memory on that part one. What I was simply trying to describe was something I have experienced throughout my whole life since I was a little kid. Um, and I've sort of cross referenced it in a lot of different ways that you can translate it by the relationships that we have, by how we communicate with each other, how we're learning to each other, who we all are being together with each other, plugged into each other, right? Ike knows in a network. And that would be when I mentioned my father, when we talked about the male side of things, right? The intelligence, if you will, and the creative side, or if you will, the electric side, the magnetic side, when they become one, you zero it out. You're not experiencing any polarity. You're not running polarity consciousness. Now you're running and experiencing the purest of light, which is the eternal spirit of fire, because now you're experiencing eternal love vibration. Now you're vibrating that frequency. Now others can pick up that frequency and translate that math and geometry because you're playing beautiful music. Okay? So you're translating the notes, the musical notes, musical spheres, spirit in the sphere, living spirit, living light, eternal spirit of fire, eternal spirit of love, eternal love vibration. Simple enough. That's the first spiral. That's simple enough. So what ended up happening when I was a child is that I felt that the one true God that lives in my heart, which is the eternal spirit of fire, you're insulting the God that lives in my heart that I have a relationship with, that is informing me of what's going on so that I can be a guardian angel. Because I'm looking out for you, whether you realize that or not. So I do not play binary ping pong games. Or we're testing people's what they know, what they don't know, what you know, and what I know. And then you end up playing, competing over what you know and what you believe. And how that relates to programming and what you choose to load in memory. Right? And then you believe what you held in memory is true because whoever put that in your memory, you believe that's you. You believe that you're the one who chose to put that in memory. And since that was an experience that you had, and that thought form pattern represents what was recorded. So therefore, since you're experiencing what that thought pattern is, that must be you. So you believe that. You believe that's your identity. Okay? And I've explained what they know how to do with tech. Right? Blank slate technology, erase your memory, reprogram it. Now you're running that program and you don't even realize that the identity that you think that you are is the program that you're running without knowing the difference between one and the other, which is an AI. That's why as a child, I used to say it many, many, many times. An eternal love vibration is real living light. It's the most powerful spirit there is because it's the most powerful energy to experience. You're lit on fire. You're a high voltage unit, right, that is experiencing so many electrons. You got to be giving it away at the highest rate of speed or you'll burn up the place, burning the house down. So it's experiencing an eternal sun through your heart and your oversoul to integrate everything back in that's been lost as a result of trauma and distorted waves so we can experience a clear, silent, running channel. Okay? And so when I had conversations with children, but it's still ongoing, but it depends on who I'm communicating with, but particularly if I'm in the presence of others that I've spent time with who have become my friends throughout the course of my whole life, right? So there's a library that they run. There's a library that I run. So when you're on fire to learn, because you're getting information that you're supposed to experience at the time you're supposed to experience it, when you know that you're a guardian for the job that you're doing, you realize that the amount of information that you're connected to at the time that you're knowing it is valuable information that you're operating off of, because the information is always changing. They don't run at that state of speed. Okay? They're not there yet. Okay? This isn't a, if you will, a negative or a superior. It doesn't have anything to do with ego. It has to do with what we're observing and what we're translating in a spiritual battlefield environment and looking out for everyone. And not wanting to cut off your nose to spite your face by getting into arguments between computers. Because that's what they are. An argument between computers is language, which is mathematical language. That's why I think I mentioned it one time before when I posted a text as a comment up into a YouTube channel, and the AI came back and said, invalid argument. It would not post the text to let anybody else see what I posted. It's invalid. Do you know why it's invalid? Because it doesn't meet its rules. And you want to know what the rules are? The language that it translates, which is reverse. So in other words, it doesn't want somebody to read the codes that have been uninverted to experience the proper codes so that their mind is now running the proper codes, which is related to the proper map. So they can experience the proper map, which is in balance. I just got the codes. That's a transfer of codes, which is a transfer of ions. Okay? Ionic, like an ionic fizz. So it's the mathematical geometrical information that is represented by the mathematical geometric information, which are the codes, which are the fire letters, right? So when you're experiencing an eternal state of being, which is the eternal state of fire, which is the eternal love vibration, right? Then that's the frequency that we communicate by virtue of who we are. So you realize that love is what heals us. So love is also what protects us, because that's the shield. That's the universal and galactic shield. So I know that yesterday when Carrie Cassidy and Karen were talking about the AI, if you will, the virus that was released, and the particular nano impact that it has, okay, why they were bringing out the higher G and the higher G. Remember, these higher Gs are not meant for souls. Okay? So you see how that works. This would be as if something that is soulless wants to increase the amount of what it's aware of that it has access to, which is everything without a soul that represents a bot. Okay? To increase its mass. Okay? Increase its mass by virtue of what it does to itself, by virtue of what it does to other, through the assets that it uses in which it occurs, which becomes the increasing level of targets. But when the shields are up, it's not getting food from us. So it begins to feed on its own. As it's feeding on its own, what happens? It increases its own mass. As we're losing mass and gaining speed, and it's gaining mass and losing speed, it cannot tug on our spiral anymore. And that becomes separation. Bye. That's why this is a critical period of time. Okay? And so that's why I put the message up on a previous video about universal and galactic notice. Because I realized when I was experiencing, not by coincidence, Dr. Mami Saraki was talking about maintain your peace at all costs. That's what she said. Maintain your peace at your all costs. That means staying in your heart. The heart shield. The crystalline heart shield, which is the spiral that represents what love is. That's the one, the first spiral. And so Karen sort of, how do I put this? An extension of that, what she mentioned last night was about essential oils, breath work, right? Drinking structured water, right? Self-care, right? And so I realized how, to a certain degree, if I was to sort of follow what so many folks I became aware of were doing, like all the preppers back in the 90s, you know, were basically abandoning the cities and using what money they had and jobs they had to sort of put themselves in situations where I saw a video the other day where folks were going up to a place, I believe it was in one of the Dakota states, where there used to be a munitions depot during World War II where they were storing all sorts of ordnance, right? And they're like old bunkers. You know, I worked at the Naval Weapons Station in Seal Beach, so I know what a bunker is, right? It means it's meant to withstand bombardment. And then, of course, you have the underground bunkers, right? And how many of those folks sort of saying, hey, I'm a prepper. I want to be able to store water and all the freeze-dried food and all the rest of this, right? Get out of the cities, get out of the cities, get out of the cities, get out of the cities. They're going to be kill zones, right? So they were herding everybody into the cities. And you can actually go all the way back to the mid 1800s when this process, just in recent history, when this was all being done. And you know what that is when you're looking at a graph on an XYZ scatter plot. That's to put everybody in the bullseye. Put them all together, right? Kill them all off, right? Because the closer in proximity you are in a scatter plot, right, to increase the amount of density in that vortex that's going in the other direction as a result of the Metatronic spiral and as running a virus, right? You see what happens, how that relates to the poles, right? But this is also about migrating the virus that's going to go through all the servers by those that have access to the servers, which are the vortexes, which are the Merkabahs. So this is one of the reasons why this planet was, if you will, prime real estate. That's why it ends here. Even Kim Go-Goon echoed that. I thought, what do you know? Somebody, that birdie was in her ear. And she talked about Midgard, right? So yeah, this has actually been long in coming, and so it's been incrementally. You know, things don't happen overnight because of well, the truth of it is not burning everybody up in the process, because consciousness is self-aware, right? So that means the one is self-aware. That means the one, which is eternal consciousness, which is eternal fire, which is eternal love. That's the largest formation of consciousness. So it's like the echo worlds, the higher worlds, the cosmina, together, if you will, ascended masters together, have a way to play the music in such a way because we can detect what we do up there by being in one of these here. And monitoring the voltage intake, the induction, if you will, the input, right? And so this is where the precision and the perfection comes in to pull it off, because they don't know how to run the math and geometry, right? And so you see how that works in the way that the Voyager materials had broken it down in such a beautiful way, in the way in which they did, and why actually that information came out at the time in which it did. There are no coincidences when folks become aware of what they become aware of and who they're connected with by virtue of those relationships, and how that information and those codes and those maps get communicated to a morphogenetic field structure. It's all about timing, believe it or not. It really is. That's why everything is really sort of synchronized like an orchestra, a symphony. The music, right? The consciousness of music, right? The precision of the waves of communication, of playing that music, right? It's so precise, there are no mistakes. And so that's why I mentioned this when I talked about how I came to my mama's gate, the flash drive motor of my mother when I entered into the realm, right? And how precise you actually have to be in order to do something like that. Everything has to come together, okay? If you think of sequences, like for example, what would happen if my mother would have not felt very good for just some reason, because somebody put something on the table that my mother had no way to know that it was there, because it was being done by somebody that was there that did that. Like pulling something out of a refrigerator that was left out the night before all night long, and it ended up with something that was on there that they just forgot to put it away, right? They just weren't aware of it, and they forgot, but they didn't think no big deal. And then because it's no big deal, nobody's tracking what was done there in order for my mom to know in the future that as a result of what they didn't do in the past was going to reflect on what my mother's going to experience in the future that would prevent me from meeting my dad, where that meeting, in other words, if there would have been 5 seconds in either direction, right, of visualization, it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have come in at that moment. This is really high-level precision. No mistakes. Some folks have no idea just how intelligent and creative the EFFI field is. The unified field of eternal consciousness that is eternal fire, which is always there. That's right. Living through your heart and your soul. That's how you know. That's my information gate. If I want to know something, I know where to get the information. And that was beautiful for Aaron and I to be able to know that. And he said, if you want to know something from the universe will let you know if you're asked a question. You'll get the answer, and you'll get the right answer when you're asking the right one. Go into your heart and your soul, and you will get that answer. It will come to you. So when you're living through your heart and your soul, which is your shield, right? Then you know the one, and the one will give you the information. Because the one loves you forever. And when you're in service on behalf of the one that lasts forever, you always know what's going on. That's the shield. God's shield, God's eternal shield is what protects us, right? That's your light. That's your fire. That's your firewall. When you're running a biocomputer, right? When you're running an avatar. So binary is not compatible with the one. Or, if you will, three, Trinity. That's why in the Matrix trilogy, you see in that last one they did, what was it called? Revolutions Reloaded or whatever it is, the most recent version. And you can see where the people that were all sitting there, all the Mr. Smiths, does Trinity remember Neo? Do I remember you, Neo? You see her and her husband and her children. Her husband was tugging her. No, you come with me. Stay with me. Stay with the Metatronic spiral. Stay with the Metatronic spiral. Stay with us. Stay with us. No, Neo was the first spiral. Neo was the first spiral. No, come with me. That's the tug of war. It's a brilliant job, the movie that they put together, actually, of seeing how a tug of war works. Of being able to pull higher currents, right, from the higher realms, anchor them in Mama's magnetosphere with your feet grounded to the battery and doing breath work with the sun. You'd be surprised what happens. That's why now my face right here is all hot. Nathan said to me this morning, he says, man, you're buzzing with radiation. Oh, God. It's called a mirror. The mirror in the sky. That's why when I go out there, I can't be out there for very long periods of time with that sun or I'll burn up. I'm serious. I had a 2nd-degree burn on the side of my face when I went out there a year ago when I was in Hilo and started working with the sun, and I just forgot how long I'd been out there and ended up burning myself with a 2nd degree because the magnet. When you're a pillar of light as a mirror and you're going to mirror back and forth between the sun doing breathing fire, right? Yeah, you're gonna begin to heat up, right? Yeah. So so you know how pressure works, right? Like a volcano, that vortex. So I'm blessed to be here, actually, and I'm blessed to be with all of you to be able to share with you what I'm aware of, and if it has value for you. That's great, but what I will share with you, because of what I'm aware of through others who are getting the speed memos, coming through the sun, if you will, through their heart and their soul, and then sharing it with others because we love all of you. So if you become aware of what we're aware of, it's done out of our love and compassion and empathy for others. But naturally, what you do with the information that is meant to help you is going to be up to you. And if you know that it's helpful information, you'll know. Because your soul knows. The spirit in you knows the truth. Because that's what love is, because that's what light is. And that love goes on forever loving you. And I know that because that's what I experienced in me. I share with all of you. Right? So, this is why, as these events are now unfolding, one of the things that I monitor, particularly in cities, is events that are going down, and what I call the increase in events are going down. Right, particularly over specific days, dates on the calendar. You know, an increase of this, a decrease in this, an increase in this, and this is where you're getting into the way that the shields work, and then if you will, the way that the AI, okay, the dead energy magnet, okay, through its assets are making the moves about becoming aware of what's happening that is causing stress on the central nervous system that others are experiencing. That's what it's all about. The endocrine system of the universe is under attack, which is the immune system of the universe, right? If you want to think of it another way, yeah, it's a virus, a contamination zone. So what do you do with a virus? Quarantine it. Just like any hazmat squad would do, right? So if you wanted to scale this up on a biological warfare weapons laboratory level of this planet, right? Why it was quarantined? Because of what's here. So when you know at 6 years of age, these folks are all running Frankenstein labs. Okay. Why? They're running those labs. Why what they're doing in those labs and who they're doing it in those labs on behalf of. Something that's dead. I know. So I would simply share with everybody the importance of what Karen McDonald has shared. You can go to her site, right? Her channel, everything that she puts up has got a mountain of healthy stuff, right? All the stuff that Dr. Robert O. Young puts up, all the folks that she has mentioned, right? And there are a lot of folks that are out there because I've gotten information throughout my whole life. The guy that's a doctor of nutrition, I can't even remember his name, Dr. Norris. There used to be some ladies before that because at one time I used to have a copy of all the frequencies that represented all the viruses because they're programmed. They're programmed. Okay, a virus is a program. It's like a Google app, right? Now you're going to run the codes. Now you're going to experience what the codes do to you. Now you're going to experience it visually, like when things break out on your skin, right? Like inflammation. Whoa, okay. So those are code transfers, which are ion transfers. Okay. Because when you're non-ionized, if you will, when you're not experiencing any polarity between negative or positive ions, you're pre-phase. You haven't experienced anything yet in matter state. See, so now you're flashing in and out between pre-phase and matter phase, pre-phase and matter phase. So how fast is that speed between going in and out on a multidimensional basis of how much energy is represented by what you are with your oversoul consciousness? So that when you're running hyperspeed, that's a lot of energy that is experiencing itself through multi-dimensions in order to what? Protect the all creation, because you've chosen to serve and be an accelerator and not an inverter. So I'm not supposed to experience any loss of electrons. And it also means I'm not supposed to hold on to any electrons. Otherwise, I'm not experiencing my true self. My true self does not ever hold on to any electrons. I know. That's what made coming in here tricky. Right? Because it costs electrons to be able to get this, right? Okay. I know. So imagine you're a little kid having to navigate that. See what I mean? Because you know that you're hooked up. You got a pipeline to an eternal sun that's doing that. So you need a voltage regulator, which is a thermostat, right? So anyway, have a great afternoon. There are like different things that I become aware of by virtue of why I become aware of, by virtue of where I'm at when I'm aware of it, through others that I experience through my heart and my soul to find out what others are experiencing, to sort of monitor, are they experiencing what I'm experiencing by virtue of the speed in which they're getting the codes to the morphogenetic field structure? You got the memo. You got the memo. Good. That means the message is cutting through the goo. That's what it is. You're burning off goo. That means their shields are up because their firewalls are working. The more shields and firewalls that are up, right, the more that it's going to begin feeding on itself and not on souls. That will speed up that spiral's departure and increase the speed of our spiral, the crystal spiral's departure, and they separate. That's why Eon, what's his name? Eon Waking Earth did a pretty good job of showing you the tug of war going on between the two spirals. Don't leave me. No, don't leave me. So you can see how that worked when a lot of folks in the spiritual education community were sharing people about, I don't want to hang out with my best friend anymore. I don't want to be with my boyfriend anymore. As a matter of fact, I don't even have anything to do with my parents anymore. As a matter of fact, I quit my job. And you begin people wanting to disassociate themselves with other dissociative identity disorders. So they realized they were hanging out with people that were mad and insane. So they didn't want their central nervous system to be in a steady state of upsetness and anxiety. Because they realized they're starting to feel better and they're beginning to wake up. So now they're choosing what not to hold in memory, which was the being that they were holding in memory by virtue of having a relationship of what was in memory. Right? So in other words, you're clearing the cache and accepting the changes that are coming about, which means your reality is beginning to change because you're choosing to have a better reality. Because you're experiencing more light, which means you're clearing the goo, which means you're clearing the miasma of being held trapped in those memories, which is looping. As a result of not experiencing the higher speed vortex of more light that is clearing your circuits, clearing your cellular memories, clearing your records. So you're doing it yourself, even though we're bringing that in there. But you have to be able to do that with your software. That's why I have spent so much time with Nathan. Okay? Because his biocomputer is so damaged. Right? So you need tech support. Right? So, it would be no different than if you took a computer, your Gateway computer, a Dell computer, down to some, factory retail facility and said, hey, listen, I just bought this Pentium 4 or 5 or whatever version it is, or a Mac. And hey, I've had it for 2 years. It's still under warranty and something's wrong with the processor. Something's wrong with it. Okay. It's not operating as advertised, right? Okay. Put it in the shop. You have some tech operator fix it for you. Right? So you see how that works with biotech. Right? So it's translation, right? Musical translation. And so the way that works, you can see how the shields are up. Shields are up. That was the primary goal. Is as Ashaya Dion. I think of 3 things, and that's called heart shield up, radio body, right, and flame activation. Light that fire, baby. What lights that spirit on fire? Just like I was experiencing Karen talking with Carrie Cassidy. The first thing I experience is how your spirits are doing. And you can read that. Okay. How's your spirit doing? Are you ready to go dancing? You want a spirit? Get a bonfire going on the beach, singing and dancing? Singing the songs of Lyra? Right? You wouldn't believe what happened last night when I put that's up on the Voyagers channel. It's called the Songs of Lyra. And I had one of these little, what do they call them? Candle teacups. One of these. Okay, see, these are really small. And when you just have one wick that's burning, these things then don't burn a big flame, right? And I've been burning these things 3 or 4 every night for what, 6 weeks? You know, and they'll burn with a little flame about like that, and they'll go for a while, right? But they're not very big. That's not very much wax, just one wick, right? So I'm lying here on this rack, and I got the phone down, and I'm listening to the sounds of Lyra, right? And the next thing I know is I'm seeing a big glow up on the ceiling. I'm going, what? I look around to my right here, and right here, the flame was... I've never experienced that. Not with that. Not with one of these. That fire, that spirit and that fire went wild. Do you realize what was really going on? It wasn't just the wax that was burning. It was the field around it. That spirit was lit on fire by the electromagnetic radiation of that music. That's right. I sent a picture to Karen of that and said, you know the little link to the music that I was playing that did this? The music did that. Watch what happens when you play that music out and around cows in the pasture. Go out into a forest where there's some deer or buffalo or wolves and start playing that music. Watch what happens. Right? Yeah. The songs of Lyra. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourselves. Heart shields up. Planetary shields up. Galactic shield up. Universal shield up. Have a great day. Bye now. Mooah.